I call this meeting of the Norco City Council to order Wednesday, March 20th, 2019. The city clerk will please take the roll.
Council members Newton, Hoffman, Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Hanna, Mayor Grunmeyer, all present.
All right, the city council will recess to close session to consider the matters listed on the agenda. Going to reconvene the public session of the Norco City Council meeting Wednesday, March 20th. The time is 7:11. So we'll have the city attorney give a report of actions taken in closed session.
Yes, the City Council considered those matters listed on the agenda, and there are no reportable actions.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for our invocation. Mayor Pro Tem Hanna. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father Mendoza from St. Mel's.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for the gift of faith and the rain. By your power, we move and have our being. We are gathered here today to serve you and conduct the affairs of the Norco City Council. Give us knowledge and strength to do your will with a proper balance of eternal values and our present needs. May we accept our responsibilities and act with courage, considering the feelings of other people. Grant us a sense of justice and stewardship both now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
At this time, it is our business appreciation honoree, so I'd like to have our EDAC chair, Scott DeRosa, join me at the podium.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And as Mayor Grunmeyer is coming down to the podium here, I'd like to ask, well, first of all, the recipient today is going to be Boot Barn, or for this month. So congratulations, Boot Barn. And I'd like to invite Eric Bowden and Frank Holdenis up to the mic. Come on over here. And welcome, gentlemen, to the Norco Council meeting tonight.
Thank you.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scott DeRosa, and I'm a member of the Norco Economic Development Advisory Council, otherwise known as EDAC. And on behalf of our City Council and EDAC, I am pleased to assist Mayor Grunmeyer with awarding this month's Business Appreciation Award to Boot Barn. With Norco being Horsetown, USA, it only seems fitting that one of our largest retailers be tied to our city theme. Boot Barn, the supplier of all sorts of Western wear and work gear, started off in 1978 as a family-owned storefront in Huntington Beach. They have since grown to 230 stores in 33 states. The founder, Ken Meany, and Boot Barn's current management embrace the down-home honesty that a family-run business represents, and they honor the American heritage just like Norconians do. Besides Boot Barn being a regular sponsor of the Norco Rodeo and Horse Week, they also provide employment to our local community, tax revenue that supports our Norco lifestyle, and they provide a needed product for not only our local community, but to the communities abroad. So big thanks goes out to Boot Barn for being an active part of Norco, and congratulations to Boot Barn for being recognized for our city, or by our city and EDAC councils. And at this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Mayor Grunmeyer so she can read the plaque.
So it is my honor to present to you from the city of Norco this certificate that says Boot Barn, whose flagship store and commitment to local community events exemplify the spirit of Horsetown, USA. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So with that, if you guys want to say a few words.
Just on behalf of Boot Barn, we are just honored to be a recipient of this award. Norco's been a fantastic home to us for many years. The community has supported us graciously with open arms, and we truly represent Horsetown, USA. We look forward to many, many more years of great success with the community support and just growth as Norco continues to grow. So thank you.
And then we get a picture. All right, at this time, we have a presentation from the Norco Horsemen's Association, the 2019 10 Most Needed Trail Repairs. So we'll have Bonnie give us that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Every year we present the 10 trails that we feel need the most improvement, and hope that the city will be able to do something about at least one of them. Some of these have been on the list since Berwin was young, and and I was a lot younger too. And so we're hoping that some of these can be done. I wanted to particularly highlight two of them that are on our list, Taft Street and south of the community center. So Cheryl, if we could, or Matt, if we could see. Okay, this picture here is looking north, looking north obviously with the snow, and you can see on the right the trail that goes along Old Hamner. So as you cross the freeway, you have this nice trail that gets you to Old Hamner, and of course you can also go to, used to be the library there, and still we have the American Legion and the Maverick, so you can get there from there. So then next, then this is Taft Street, and so you can see that there's no trail on Taft Street. The left side on the screen here, there's quite a bit of activity with whoever lives there seems to have a large truck, but the right side doesn't. And we have offered a way that Norco Horsemen could very little or low or no cost put in a trail on that side. If the city could secure easement, we could use some of the wooden posts and rails that we have and put in a temporary trail. I know that you want to get this developed, but you've been telling me that for several years, and I'm getting older and there's still no trail there. And I would like to not have to ride in the street, and I also feel if there was a trail there, then when that property is developed, there would be recognition that there should be trail in that area. The next slide, please, Matt. And this is also Taft, and again, you can see there is no trail. We have to ride in the street there. Then the next one. And this is the Alhambra Crossing look back, the way you'd be coming, and I know the city spent a lot of money to put in this lovely Alhambra Crossing, but without Taft being developed, you have an island of a lovely crossing there and no way to get to it from the Old Town area, and unless you just ride in the middle of Taft Street. And so after this lovely crossing and the way it goes across the community center, next slide please, you have the trail that goes up the hill here, next slide please, and it goes on up the hill, and then at the top of the hill, the last slide please, we have a fence with a building on it. Now it looks to me like this property owner has just put their fence out onto the city property, or at least the easement of that street there, and so all we can do at this point is ride off to my right there into the park and across, which on the grass, which isn't optimal. So we are hoping that you can do something. We have offered about Taft Street, and we're hoping that the city can do something about here, where this property owner appears to have decided to enlarge their property at the city's expense and improve this. I also wanted to point out that these two would help to connect a system of trails. The only way you have a system is that they do connect, and these two are particularly important for people that don't drive. Now, I know there's a reason that some people in this town don't drive, and we all know that one and think of that one first. However, there are people that either have vision problems or medical problems that preclude preclude them from getting a driver's license, and they can get around town on their horseback. And so it was pointed out to me by somebody that lives over in the Bluffs that it's really hard for them to be able to ride over, say, to the Legion and some of that area because of the lack of trail in this area. So people with disabilities are hampered by the lack of trail in this section here. So I hope this can kind of go up on the list and you can look at that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie. So we will move on to our City Council business items. Item number 1 is City Council communications, reports on regional boards and commissions. So we will start with Councilman Hannah, or Mayor Pro Tem Hannah, sorry. Mr. Hannah.
You're forgiven.
Thank you, sir.
Start out with our NART team. We're going to have a demonstration this coming Saturday at Moreno Valley at the Public Safety Seminar down there. It's supposed to be the Riverside County Sheriffs and CAL FIRE and several other agencies. They'll all have their equipment. I saw the map of the layout on it. There's going to be a bunch of displays there. We're going to do one, and then on the 31st, we're going to be up here at Backcountry Horsemen's Rendezvous at 11, from 11 to 2, and we'll be doing a demonstration up there. And then we have another one possibly coming up in May at the LA Equestrian Center. And last Friday, excuse me, I attended the retirement celebration for Major Dillon. He's the guy standing there to my left. He's been the district manager of vector control out here for 30-something years, and he's one of the top men in the world for vector. He goes to several conferences and seminars worldwide each year to talk about the vector control, and we had a round table discussion there, international. The lady on the left is from Argentina, the gentleman there is Brazil, the little lady there is from Greece, and then Major, and then the Texas guy, and then the little short guy on the end there. He's been over here for 70-something years. He was the Major's entomology professor out at college when Major got his degree. And the guy still teaches, and he still goes to worldwide conferences, and his nickname is the Mosquito Pope. And quite an interesting gentleman. The whole bunch was, what I tell everybody, that was a room full of accents over there that day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to start off with, I did a lot of things, but the major thing that I'd like to hit on, Matt, if you can flip that over if you see it. They attended the Western Community Energy Meeting, and we just got notification today from our main body there, WRCOG, that the WCE, the Western Community Energy, the CUP, the California Public Utilities Commission, just certified the WCE they certified the plan for us to get started. So anyway, we're going to start on that one, and they're also going to start looking at doing a survey for the area for the energy use in the area to let people know what's going on. Later on in the meeting, after we're done with our regular agenda, Andy, our city manager, is going to talk a little bit more and discuss a little bit more to the council members and those in attendance what the WCE is doing and steps they're taking. He's our expertise manager or technical manager on the WCE. So you can give me the next slide there, Matt, please. I kind of missed it, but that's okay. The other day, Director Blaze and myself went to the Riverside County Regional Wastewater Authority plan, and we began our CIP budget. And as you can see there, we did a pretty good job holding them to task. These are the directors of this. They came in and wanted to put a big building in there, and we just shut them down. And with the idea that, wait a minute, you're spending way too much money. So you're going to see that we're carrying over that kind of money going through there, but it's and I know Councilman Newton has his opinion about this group, and it is true. The management team wants all the bells and whistles, and for the people in the JPA, we have just had to hold them down for it because the costs are just getting too much. And it's gonna take more money to operate this thing, but let's face it, some of our budgets, especially our city of Norco, along with Harupa Community Services, Rican Home Gardens, even the city of Corona, we can't take these hits like this all the time. So we just had to bring back some reality to them. And then Matt, if you can think about I don't know if you have the memorial and the Medal of Honor deal up there. This is on the Veterans Memorial. I just want to remind everybody on Monday, March 25th at 9 a.m., we're going to have a short ceremony up at the memorial to honor George Ingalls on Medal of Honor Day. And then on Friday morning, please, on the 29th, come out to the pole barns up at Ingalls Park. We're serving free breakfast, okay, to the veterans and any of your veterans' families in there. You go show up. Come on, I'll serve you breakfast. Free breakfast, okay? We want people there, and if you've got veterans in your families, come on up. I'm going to have somebody from the Riverside County Veteran Services. They're going to do some presentation on the benefits. There are a lot of veterans in town. If you got family members, you have other people that need to know what kind of programs are available to them. It's important, and as a family member where there's three of us, Vietnam era veterans and veterans, it's important that we get to some of the older folks to realize all the benefits that you need and programs that are out there for you. So please come on out, and then after that we'll do a short ceremony. And then finally, this one just came up, and Councilman Newton, myself, along with the city manager and Chad from Public Works, along with some of the finance staff. I just going to remind you, on April 27th is the community cleanup and paper shredding day up at George Ingalls Park. You come into the parking lots, you meet Chad, you meet one of the waste management people. They'll check you in, and then we'll go through, and guess what? We have people, we'll unload your truck for you, okay? We'll throw your trash away. So let's call it our spring cleanup for April 27th. This is our third time up there, Chad, doing it? This will be our fourth time. And unless you want to drive up to El Sobrante and stand in that line for an hour and a half to 2 hours to wait to go in, and then another 30 minutes for way back, it's a lot easier. And we don't mind. We'll unload your truck for you, but we'll take volunteers too to help unload. On this, and one of the things that came out about it, and you will see as we start to progress, and you've heard us in the past talk about how the state, Cal Recycle, has got new programs coming up, and they're not really that friendly to cities and to the businesses in the state, the business climate. They're going to demand more recycling programs, and for us to take care of more of the enforcement of these programs. And that's why we did our changes to our city ordinance to do that. We need to educate on this recycle program. Things that I realize, like most of you, I probably put my my recyclables in a plastic trash bag and threw it out there. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. So you're supposed to just leave them loose in there. So we're going to probably start an education program here on a lot of people, hopefully to the schools. We have to retrain ourselves on what's recyclable and what's not. That just because it has that little triangle thing on there, it doesn't mean it qualifies as a recyclable. So look forward to that in the future, but please mark April 27th down your calendar. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Bash. I'm going to just touch on two things. I met with CAL FIRE. It was a very good meeting, I think. I don't know, did you guys come up with a decision on what you'll say in your letter? Or what we're trying to do, this the reliability project, the transmission lines going through the river, what we're hoping is to get a letter from CAL FIRE that says it's not safe to do anything but underground or not do the project at all, because it is a high propensity fire area.
Excuse me, our fire chief and Deputy Chief Todd Williams, they're compiling all that information. I expect to be called into headquarters probably this week or the early part of next, and work on getting that draft letter out in support, or essentially, let me step back there, stating the concerns with both. There's concerns with above ground, and then there's naturally less concerns with below ground. So naturally getting all those facts and making sure those facts are accurate to where it can be put in the letter and then sent to the Public Utilities Commission.
Great, yeah, there was a councilman from Urupa Valley. He brought out all the Mookie Mooks and the CAL FIRE Mookie Mooks, and we had Mr. Bondar there, so thank you very much for the time. And then one of the things I didn't list is we had a meeting with the Navy, and as a lot of you know, and Ted was there, and so was Andy, as many of you know, there are times when the battle with the Navy hinged on a window. And we got to see there was they say nothing's historic there. In fact, one of the conversations was they were talking about the CNO coming, which is the top dog in the Navy. And I said, well, you've been there twice before. And they said, well, they were talking about how everything was important. And I happened to mention, I said, well, Norco's always said you were important. But anyway, the old theater building, what they did was an incredible job. They totally respected the historic architecture. They put in a window that's not perfect, but it is very, very similar to the one that was removed. They actually saved the window, and the interior, which you don't count toward the historic integrity, is just wonderful. And the exterior is it's absolutely beautiful, and it's what I would consider, in fact, they don't know it yet, but I've actually sent a letter to SHPO stating I think that they should get an award for adaptive reuse. I'm so impressed with what they did. So I think that in part, I think the advocacy of Norco has borne fruit, because the other thing they're doing is they're taking the old Norconian chauffeurs' quarters and they're going to do a complete historic retrofit, doing the outside, including putting in windows that are historically accurate. I mean, I don't know what happened. Some of you don't remember, but the LNCF sent a letter. There's been a change in the law that says they can use local funds for historic preservation. So it freed up money indirectly and then directly to actually fund the project so they can actually put on tile roofs. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The Navy, apparently, they're still dragging their feet on what they're going to determine in terms of the historic district for the Navy base. I think, were we told May, Ted, or was it fall? No, fall. I don't believe they'll come up with anything. As I told you before, there's a big lawsuit going on. If we decide to appeal it to the Keeper of the Register, the Navy has, as I think I explained before, the Navy takes the position it doesn't matter until they determine it. And so that's what's being upheld, and the former Keeper of the Register is actually suing the current Keeper of the Register because they're saying, no, that is not in the spirit of Section 106 of the Historic Preservation Code. But all in all, I don't know how Ted felt, but I was just like, I mean, after 10 years of fighting these guys, all of a sudden they're like bending over backwards. They're trying to put tile roofs, and they're trying to, how did this look and how did that look? I'm supposed to send a bunch of photos of a two-story building that was torn down in the 70s, and they want to recreate the old fire station. That's what it was. So you're like, okay, I'm on board. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. One of these days.
Madam Mayor.
One of these days.
Your mother's going to kill me.
Councilman Newton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks.
Chino Basin Desalter Authority Board meeting, and the other day met with, like Council Member Hoffman mentioned, with Waste Management, and on how we do need additional and re-education on recycling. So That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And then for my report, you can see those things up there. Do we have the video for Youth and Government Day? Really good day. I'd like to thank all the staff for their time and efforts to make the students feel welcome. As somebody that works with young people, I think it's so important that we open up to them other opportunities for jobs and careers that they don't necessarily think of. And I think the Youth and Government Day does an excellent job of opening up some opportunities and showing the students some things that they probably don't think about when it comes to career opportunities. So again, huge shout out to the staff for taking and making that day special for those students. We are going to go ahead and move on to City Council consent items.
Madam Mayor, real quick.
Yes.
I want to applaud you and the Unload team for your Step Ahead program that night, and to all the kids that attended it. As one of the persons I attended as the veterans, for the Veterans Committee up there, I tell you what, I was astounded. I was really impressed with the speakers and the kids and the reception that the kids gave those speakers. So kudos to you and the Unload team. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Fire department ate well, too.
Yes, they did. We had plenty of donations that evening. So, City Council consent items. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and may be enacted by one motion. Prior to the motion to consider any action by the council, any public comments on any of the consent items will be heard. There will be no separate action unless members of the council or the audience request specific items be removed from the consent calendar. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered separately under item number 3 on the agenda. So, council members, are there any items to be pulled this evening?
B, G.
Any others?
Motion to approve the rest.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the city council consent items with the exceptions of C, D, and G.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move on to item number 3, which is our pulled items. We'll start with C. Councilman Bash.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you.
I would like to appeal under business item under the Planning Commission 4B. My reasons for doing so is I'm not real comfortable with that entire process, and I'd really like to bring it to council so we could discuss it from the initial submission all the way through to the end.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second.
Under discussion?
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to support the appeal. The applicant had called me after the Planning Commission meeting, and I told him my personal feeling was that he could pay the appeal fee, or he could contact any of the other council members as he chose. But I believe there was after talking with Mr. King, I believe there was a little more to this than just what the minutes and the applicant had to say to me. So for those reasons, I'm not going to support the pulling the item.
Any other discussion from council?
My concern is not so much about the project per se, it's how it was first submitted that I think we as a council, I can only talk to one person, I think we as a council need to look at, one, what was submitted and ultimately approved, and then second, I'm very concerned with how we're treating applicants as they come before that commission, and I think there needs to be a discussion on that. But other than that, I totally understand where Greg is coming from, but this was I'm just really disturbed by a lot of this, what this process was about, again, and from the initial thing on.
I support your second half of that. I think it's two different issues. And if I look at it that way, the second part of it, I certainly agree with you.
I would concur with Mr. Newton's comments. Any other discussion? All right, I think we're ready for a vote then.
Okay, this will be a verbal roll call vote. Councilmember Newton?
No.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanna?
No.
Councilmember Hoffman?
No.
Mayor Grunmeyer?
No.
That motion fails 4-1, with Councilmember Bash voting yes. The others voting no.
Okay, so do we have?
You need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion for C anyways, correct? Or how does that? A motion to?
Yes.
Okay.
To receive and file.
Is there
I make a motion to approve C for approve and file. File.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to receive and file item C. Any discussion?
Please vote on this item. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we'll move on to item D. Councilman Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of concerns with this, and I did visit with the Public Works Director. What I'm going to recommend is that we continue this item off calendar, and I'll discuss my reasons with Chad right now. One of my concerns is that the overall contract being $1,192,000, and we typically have the 10% allowance, for change orders. In this case, $119,000. But in the staff report, the project had experienced unexpected issues related to design errors and site conditions that have required minor to significant change orders totaling $118,000. The two things I would like to see that $118,000 broken into is the proportionate amount attributed to design errors, and then the remaining amount into site conditions. I'm certainly aware that conditions change on a job site, so I don't have much heartburn about that. But I do have some concerns on the portion that is design errors. And then as we go a little further, we also have approximately an additional $40,000 over the projected 10% requested. That is for, as I look at it once again, $28,000 of that 40 is design errors. And then the $10,000 difference is where we are with Edison on this. So that part I'm extremely upset about. That should never happened. I believe the $28,000 plus or minus is should be directly borne by the design engineer. That's a complete swing and a miss on that. And on the $10,000 for Edison, their charges to relocate a box that they didn't know was there. I'd like to see us go a little further with negotiating that with Edison also. You have any comments back to me on that, Chad?
Sure. I'll go with the Edison one first. I can tell you, at the time when this report was written, I had not yet had the meeting I was planning to with Edison. I did meet with them last week on Friday, actually, and we reviewed the issue that was there. They understood the problem and were willing to go look at other alternate solutions. I have since talked to them again. They do believe they can minimize, or if not eliminate, the cost to moving that box if we can wait while and incorporate that change as part of the power drop and improvements they're going to do for the new commercial property that's being developed right now, basically indicating, because they had the impression this was a time-sensitive issue for them to remove their box, and I indicated we had never asked the box to be removed. Mm-hmm. We simply wanted it to be raised or determined so we could figure out whether or not we could fill back that space or not. So at this point, they've indicated to me that there's a likelihood that they could simply just incorporate it into the commercial property project as overall work and probably not charge the city anything. They haven't committed to that, but they're still looking at the process, and that's as of yesterday in that conversation. Okay. So they're working to try to make this as painless as possible. They just had some misconceptions for some reason, which I don't know why, that they felt that we were demanding they remove their box, and we never asked that. We found it under the road. They weren't aware, they couldn't locate it originally when we started the project because it got buried under the road that was constructed many years ago. So we recognize this is something that we are responsible for, because we as a city, we buried it. But they recognize this is what the infrastructure is. It's not critical. It can be. They are willing and have shown an earnest to try to come up with a better solution that was initially offered by the technician that was looking at the project.
So when we talked about this Monday, Tuesday, that more than likely that box can remain where it is, add a grade ring, and it's a done deal. And we should hopefully not have that impact to that cost.
Right. I think their goal is they would like to see it gone out of there, but I think that's what they're going to try to do at no cost to us. If it turns they feel it's easier for them to simply put up the grade ring, they'll do that too. And at hopefully that should be minimal to minor cost.
Right. So then that can go away, but the $29,000 that still needs to be resolved. And what we're doing right now is, as this electrical is being redesigned, and Edison's going to have to change the power to that, we are still running these lift stations off of a generator, correct?
Correct. That's the point. The design has been done, and we've actually authorized the contractor to start the work, because we do need to get the new pedestal in and the conduit, the wire pulled, et cetera, up to the Edison pole that they've have done the red line drawings for us to go to. And then as soon as the work is done, they will do the inspection to make sure it was done properly, and then finally bring the power out to us. So we have authorized the contractor to begin that work because we know it has to get done. So that process has already started.
Okay. So we'll let the 10,000 go. My feeling still is at this point, I'm fine with you authorizing the work, but I am not going to support taxpayer money being spent for the $28,000, $29,000 when that's clearly the design engineer's fault. And then back to my original statement on the separation of costs between valid site condition change orders and design errors.
In general, I could probably tell you off the cuff, the design errors, this is the major one, a total of maybe 35,000 total of design errors.
Okay, so
most everything else was all unforeseen site conditions that weren't known as part of the project. A couple costs also was additional work, one being removal of that little median island there and lowering of the sewer manhole.
Right.
So that was part of that cost.
Sure.
Some of it was requested work. So that's basically kind of the breakout. And the city manager and myself are already working with the engineer to determine the amount of money that should appropriately be paid.
It seems to me $65,000.
Again, it's something that, again, the city manager and I are working on to determine what should, because errors do happen, and in most contracts, a lot of them are minimized. They're oversights, or they're information that wasn't known at the time. I don't want to minimize what happened.
This isn't the first time, though, with this. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to support it unless I see the numbers in front of me. And I figured that's $65,000 of taxpayer money that we shouldn't have to spend.
Well, I'm just want to make clear. The total that I think are true errors as max is about 35,000.
Yep.
That includes this 30 or 28 that.
Okay, I thought you were saying that's separate. It's the 28 and 30.
Of the total that's currently we're asking for and what's been spent, the total of true errors is about 35.
Okay, 35. When we get the check, you'll get my vote. Thanks.
If I could add to that, Mr. Newton, the item that is before you is actually going ahead and finishing the work. None of this payment is going to the design engineer. Certainly that is a negotiation process we are going to undertake, and we can come back to the city council through the appropriate process to get your authorization to settle for whatever the amount is. But again, I think the item before you this night is to authorize the work that is needed in order to finish this project.
I'll disagree, Andy. This is for, and I'm fine with moving forward with the work, but this is appropriating additional funds, is the recommendation.
Correct.
And I don't feel we should appropriate at least $35,000 of additional funds for someone's booth.
Yeah, the appropriation of additional funds is, again, necessary to get the work finished. A separate item, distinct and apart from that, is pursuing a claim against the design engineer. Whether we pursue that claim or not, again, this work needs to be finished, and that's why the appropriation request is there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think what Andy's saying in kind of another way is that we're going to have a contractor that didn't have anything to do with the design, do the work, and it has to be done. We have to pay him. Now we get to recover.
No, I understand that. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
Chad, I talked to you about this one today, and I also have the same sentiments that Councilman Newton did about SCE and the lost box until you explain to me what happened with it and the costs associated with this. somewhere or another this has got to get done. But I'm also understanding I don't like to pay a whole lot of money. I think we just went through this with the RICWA plant, always asking for more and more, and because of engineering people wanting it out and not doing their proper homework to do the research. But this thing needs to get done, correct? The job needs to get finished. We're sitting in here.
Right.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you're asked for $40,000 more on top of this, correct? That's what it says.
Correct.
Additional $40,000.
Correct. To finish off the project.
To finish off the project. And part of that was for Edison or not?
The 10,000 is for the assumption that if we have to go through with either modifications inside the plant or moving the box, if they're decided to go that route, that's the maximum they said we'd have to pay was the 10,000.
Okay, but you'll know more about that later, correct?
Yeah, the money's not guaranteed to be spent.
So essentially, let's put it this way: forget Edison. We got a project that we need to get finished. We got lift stations that are running on a generator and out of power. What's the actual amount you need to finish this project? And we can deal with the engineer that didn't do his job properly and chase him down maybe in court or in the legal wings. But what do you need to get this job done? Because we have residents over there that need to get it done.
The most at this time is the 40,000. That includes Edison. If it were to happen that way, I would need that 10,000.
I told you, get rid of Edison.
I can't get rid of it because it's still an outlier that could be hanging over us that I have to pay for. I'm confident that with working with them the last week, talking with them, that they're going to do their best to eliminate that or make it very minor, but I'll still need the additional funds to make sure I pay even a minor amount. So the 40,000 I'm comfortable with. I don't expect to spend it all, but at least it makes sure that I don't have to come back to ask the council for additional dollars because it didn't work out because Edison couldn't find the resolution they wanted. Right now, they've said for sure they can move it out for 10,000 if they had to. I believe truly that they are going to find a resolution. They're committed to it, so we don't have to pay anything or a very minimal amount. So, but I'd like to keep it in there just to cover ourselves. It's not meant for the contractor for his work. I've got his proposal in here, which is just under 28,000, and to do his work, that gets that portion done, and then it's just Edison bringing the power drop in, which they've already said, and I've signed the documents. That's for free. So I know there's not going to be any cost more to that. And then this will get the project 100% done off of the generator.
Okay, and we can't extend this out. You're on a timeline, right?
Right. At this point, the contractor basically is finished, and he's gracefully said, I'm not delaying him in closing the project, and he's willing to just work with us.
Okay. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion or motion on the item?
Please vote on this item. Motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Newton voting no.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item G. Councilman Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. What I'd like to ask of Chad on this one is we're going in the opposite direction, that I'm extremely happy with your bids, your bid package. The contractor that you selected does a lot of work in town, and he's very competitive. So I have one question for Gina and a couple of questions for you. So can I start with you, Gina? That basically this is where we've acquired additional right-of-way, and we will be doing street improvements, curb and gutter, that some of these properties we've had cash in lieu, specifically like J&M Towing for maybe 20 years, okay, that we've took cash in lieu in his property as one of the improvements. Do we transfer that cash in lieu, let's say that J&M gave us years ago, does that get transferred to this cost, or does it just go into street improvements?
Would be basically, when the expenditure comes around, it'll be assigned to, a portion of it will be assigned to any of the street project funds that have been highlighted, but then we'll also charge that deposit account.
Okay.
So.
And if there's any others, I just recall that one.
Correct.
Okay. So we're all good with our cash in lieu account then?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Chad, what I was going to ask is just to, if we could, is jump out in front of this as far as communication, whether it's in our newsletter or on our website or whatever. It's just that we have finished all the repaving on Hamner Avenue from 3rd to 4th and all new water lines. And I just know there's going to be negative comments made of, you know, typical city stuff. They refinished Hamner Avenue and now they're tearing it up again. So if we could get out in front of that so that we communicate to the residents that this is just additional right-of-ways that we have acquired, and how that work is going to be performed, like, you know, the different sections at different properties and at night, et cetera. So it's more of communication and maybe take away some of the anticipated negative blowback. Other than that, I'm certainly in favor, and I make a motion to approve this agenda item.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item G.
Vote on this item. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we're going to move to item number 4, public comments. This is a time when persons in the audience wishing to address the City Council regarding matters not on the agenda may speak. Please complete the speaker card in the back of the room and present it to the City Clerk so that you can be recognized. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the City Council's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized items. At this time, such comments are made. The City Council shall not discuss or take action relative to any general public comment.
Michael Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Grunmeyer, council, staff. Mike Williams, Backcountry Horsemen of California. We've got our 2019 rendezvous coming March 29th through 31st. Want to mention that Dave Stamey will be there Friday night at 8 o'clock in the Nellie Weaver Amphitheater. If you haven't ever seen him, I implore you to go to this concert. It's really worth sitting through. Our rendezvous is all volunteer, no charge to the public, no parking charge. It's completely free. It's more of a trade show for horsemen, backcountry horsemen, as it were. We're all about public lands. We'll have Dr. Becky Gilday from the SoCal Equine Hospital speaking, Dr. Margot Machin. The NART team will be there. We're very grateful for that. The CHP will be there. We're going to have Dutch oven cooking, competition and contest. Anybody can participate in that. We have a Western Art Show. Again, $5 per entry. Anybody can participate in that. The clinicians this year, Mark Sheridan, Jerry Tyndall, Ray Spence, and Victor Pinner. The U.S. Forest Service Packers will be there. Lee Rozier, if you've ever been to Bishop Mule Days, he's the guy that brings the 20 string into the arena. Lee is really, really good. BLM Horse and Burros Auction. Grant's bringing 20 horses and 10 burros. So that auction will be up there. Kids Corral. All kinds of things for kids. Leave no trace, backcountry things. Teach them about camping. All kinds of things for the kids. Any of the packing competitions that are going on, again, anybody can participate. You go up there, learn how to pack, throw your $20 bill up there and see how you do. It's a lot of fun. We have a trail competition. It's an obstacle competition open to the public again. They've got a jackpot gate competition, $20 a shot. Go through there, hit the gates as fast as you can, come back out. We've got an open and novice division and a packing division. Again, this is a belt buckle opportunity. So if you're interested in doing that, it's well worth being there. We've got about 40 vendors right now. We have our Saturday night auction raffle that'll be up there. Again, that's a fundraiser for us. Sunday morning, we've got the Cowboy Church at 8 o'clock in the South Arena. Lions Club is doing the breakfast for us on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Opening ceremonies, we've got the Riverside County Sheriff's Mounted Color Guard coming in Friday, the Marine Corps Mounted Color Guard on Saturday, and the main attraction is coming in on Sunday. And because of what I heard here in council, I reached out to the Betancourt family, and Bethany Betancourt will be doing our national anthem Friday and Saturday. So I appreciate having that information. So I hope everyone can make it. It'll be a great event. Thank you to those of you who helped supported us. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing everyone there.
Thank you. Mayor, that concludes public comments.
Great, thank you very much. We will move on to item number 5, discussion action items. The order of presentation for discussion items is as follows. Number 1, the staff report presentation. Number 2, we'll have council questions of staff. 3, we will have public speakers in favor, against, or neutral to the item. Number 4, council discussion, and then completing it with council action. So with that, our item for today is city council consideration and discussion of proposed fee study and cost allocation plan. Gina?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm pleased to present a receive and file action, and it is our comprehensive fee study and cost allocation plan for the city. And we've done this, last time we did this about 10 years ago. We did some updates in between then and now. Best practice is actually to do it every 5 years. We'll be seeing this more often. And Mr. Johnson, Eric, who's up at the podium, come on up. He's president of Revenue and Cost Specialist LLC, and he's been working with us since November of last year on all of our fees. And to sum this up, basically, it's a review of the cost of providing the services to the community. And before it comes up, I want to just let you know, and the community know as well, that this is a receive and file action. You're receiving the document tonight. Eric's going to explain it to you, how to review it, the basis for it. But going forward, we do have a plan. We have study sessions, 2 hours, April 17th. An overview of this document that we gave you, which is everything except for recreation fees. Then on May 1st, another study session from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. with the recreation study overview. You will be getting the book prior to that to see as well. And then May 15th, we are proposing at the council meeting to adopt the fee study and the cost allocation plan. It doesn't have to be adopted that night. We've got a little bit more time, but that's the anticipated evening. I request for all of you to keep your books, brighten them, bring them back to the study sessions, and they're for you. And with no further ado, I'll bring up Eric, and he'll provide a presentation and then answer any of your questions.
Great. Thank you, Gina. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's good to be with you this evening. Again, I'm Eric Johnson from Revenue and Cost Specialist. Just want to present the findings of this cost of services study tonight, go give you an overview, make sure you understand how to read the report, how to get into the details of the report, and as Gina mentioned, come back and really get into the details at a further study session. Before we get into that, just want to give a little background on Revenue and Cost Specialist. We've been doing this since 1980, since the passage of Proposition 13 and Proposition 4, and the founders of this company, 2 former city managers and a finance director actually, looked at the passage of Proposition 13 and Proposition 4 and realized that government was going to have to act more like a business. And this type of information of knowing what it costs to provide services was going to be needed. And they were absolutely right. We're doing this 40 years and going on, and numerous other people out there are doing it also. But we really pioneered this concept of matching the fee revenue with the cost of the service, which really wasn't something that was being done in local government at that time. We've done this for over 250 agencies in 5 states. I myself have been doing this for almost 30 years in oh my gosh, over 100 agencies. So it's been a while. I'm still having fun with this, so wanted to get into this with you tonight. And as I'm going along, if you have just kind of questions about things as I'm going through it, feel free to jump in. Want to keep it informal and just make sure that we're all feel good about what's being presented. So what have we done? We've really recast the city budget with a business orientation. And we really did this because the voters of California told us that they wanted us to. They passed Proposition 13, which limited property taxes, of course. But a year later, they passed Proposition 4, which told city government to act more like a business, keep track of your cost, and importantly, allowed you to recover the cost reasonably borne of services through fees. That was the first time that was laid out, now part of Article 13B of the state constitution. So that was really, we're doing all this because the voters told us they want us to act more like a business. And so a big part of that is, if you're a business, you better know what it costs to provide services to your customers. Governmental accounting is designed to know what it costs for a department, know what public works costs, and engineering costs, and finance costs, and city manager costs. But it doesn't tell you what it costs to provide services to your customers. That's what we've done through this process. So you won't see a city council service. You won't see a city manager service or a finance service. They're all part of the support costs for the employees that are providing services to the public, to your customers. And so you'll see fully burdened hourly rates in there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is what it costs to provide services out there for the public. And we've also matched revenues to costs, because again, you're not going to be a business very long if you don't match up your revenues with your cost. And we've done that through this process also. So how do we do it? Well, of course, this information doesn't really exist. Governmental accounting, again, is not designed to track this type of information. So we sat down with all the various different departments, sat down with them and identified where the services they're providing and who's doing them, how much time does it take. Come back and do it again. We come back and do it again. The goal of this is to allocate 100% of the cost of everybody. Everybody's doing something, whether it's a fee service, something that could be a fee service, a tax-supported or community-supported service, or an overhead service where it's providing support to other parts of the organization. We reviewed the budget. We looked at employees' actual salaries. We looked at the fringe benefits they're getting. We allocated operating expense costs, services and supplies costs. We also developed a cost allocation plan, which is another 300-page document which allocates out the overhead cost. And so, for instance, in finance, we have the accounts payable function. We identified how much time is being spent on the accounts payable function, who's doing it, how much time they're spending doing it, and then we allocated it back to the other parts of the organization by the number of payables. The more payables you have, the more of the accounts payable costs you get. And we did that with every administrative department and developed the services that they provide and developed a fair allocation method to get those costs fairly and defensively back to the other parts of the organization that are using that. So through that, we developed a fully burdened hourly rate, a fully allocated hourly rate for every position in the city. Salaries, benefits, operating expenses, city overheads, department overheads, because within a department you'll have administrative support for the department head or clerical staff or whatever the case may be. Sometimes divisional overhead, if that was the case, but a fully burdened business rate for every position in the city. What does it cost for each position to be able to be out there to do their job? That's what that fully allocated hourly rate is. So we took that fully allocated hourly rate, matched it up with that time detail. Now we know what's the fully allocated cost to provide those services to the public. We then sat down with the departmental staff again for all those fee services, or things that could be fee services. We went through and said, here's the cost, here's your current fee, and in most cases we suggested a rate to recover 100% of the cost. And we made sure that how we're charging that is something that makes sense and it's going to work on an everyday basis at the counter. Talked a little bit about tax services, community-supported services, personal choice services, fee services. Community-supported services are when people say, this is what I pay my taxes for, this is what they pay their taxes for. That only taxes can pay for this. Police, fire, park maintenance, street maintenance. Then there's personal choice services, those things where the customer is identifiable, the service benefits a particular individual or group, and there's a rationale for being able to charge back for those services. So development services are a good example of personal choice services. They're requesting to develop. The city has a process to go through. We've identified what that time is, what that cost is, and there's a fee in place now, and we certainly recommended a fee as part of this process to going forward to recover all of those costs. Now, I'm kind of a picture person myself, so another way of saying what I just said is there's these kind of matching circles. Taxes and grants, again, limited by Proposition 13, at least on the property tax side, are there to support community-supported services. Fees, detailed and defined through Proposition 4, are there to support personal choice services. Now, to the extent that the fees don't cover the cost of providing that service, money's got to come from somewhere. The only place it can come from is taxes. So every time you have a subsidy in a fee service, the only place that that subsidy comes from is the taxpayer. Anytime a fee does not cover its cost, that service is being provided. It's now a question of who's going to pay for it. And if that fee does not cover the cost, the taxpayer is paying for it. And now that means that's money you don't have to spend on cops and firefighters and street maintenance workers and those services, those community-supported services. And that's really what this process is about. Yeah, the outcome of that is some fee recommendations and some fee recovery, but it's really about tax subsidy policy. Who's going to pay for these services that benefit individuals or benefit individual groups? That's what we're here to talk about. Let me take you through the book real quick, just so we understand how it's laid out and where that $1.359 million number came from in current subsidies. So if you open up the book, there's about 7-8 pages of text in the beginning that just an overview of a lot of what I just said. After that, there's a summary schedule. And so just in the spreadsheet, looks like that. You notice the first service up there, development services S001, construction plan check and inspection. We're showing $487,000 in revenue. That's based on the current fees. That's the current revenue you're getting today based on the current fees. We're showing cost about $551,000 for this service. So this particular service has a subsidy of $64,000 currently. $64,000 in tax dollars is going to support this service. It's recovering about 88.4% of its cost. Next to that is a goal to recover 100% of its cost. And then a possible new revenue if you adopt the recommendations in this book. And so all the services in this book are listed on this spreadsheet here. Goes on for 5 pages, I believe. And so it goes through all the development services, planning services, engineering services, building services, moves on to sheriff and fire services, water services, and then administrative services. And so if you go to page 5 of this schedule, you'll see that there's current fee revenue of about $1.4 million, current fee cost of about $2.7 million. So there's that subsidy number, $1.369 million, or about 50% of the total cost. Now, if you go over to that far right column, that possible new revenue, you notice that $364,000, much lower number between the subsidy and what we think, if all the recommendations were put in here, that you could get if you took into account all the recommendations. And the big reason for that, if we go back up to animal control, is animal control, even though we have some fee changes and fee recommendations, and it's technically a fee service, is currently heavily subsidized and will continue to be heavily subsidized. That's just the nature of animal control. And so almost $1 million of that difference is due to the continued expected subsidy for animal control. And there's a couple of little areas where we're recommending a lower subsidy, or all those services that have the pound sign next to them means we're not projecting revenue because you may get one of these every 3, 4, or 5 years, but we still need to cost it out. If you go after this summary schedule and go to Appendix A right after that, you'll see a fee comparison. So this is the current fees and the proposed fees side by side for all the same services you just saw on that summary schedule. So if you go down to the second to the last service on page 1 there, the informal review by Planning Commission, S0085. And you see the fees going from $872 to a proposed change to $1,645. Now if you're going, why is that going up $1,645? Who's involved? What's involved? Most of this book is the detail for all those questions. So this Appendix A goes on for 22 pages. If you go back past page 22, it'll take you to Appendix B. And if you go a few pages into Appendix B, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner that S0085. And if you turn to that page, S0085, you'll see the informal review by Planning Commission. And so it'll be kind of 2 matching pages, looks like this. Okay? So for all those services on that summary schedule, all those services in that Appendix A, there'll be these two matching pages. On the left-hand side, you'll see the department, the primary department. You'll see a description of the service. Below that, you'll see what the current fee is. Below that, you'll see a revenue and cost comparison based on the current fees, both on a per unit basis and on an annual basis. And the costs come from the right-hand page. And so if you look at that right-hand page for this particular service, we have a planning director at 4 hours, 4.0, 4 hours per application. And 4 hours per application, fully burdened, salaries, benefits, operating expenses, city overheads, department overheads, is $832. There's one of these a year, and therefore the total cost is that same number. We have a senior planner also at 4 hours. We have a permit technician at 2 hours. So you can see the positions that are involved. You can see how much time it is. You can see a description of the service, so you get a better understanding of what this service is. And then back in the lower left-hand corner, there will be a fee recommendation from me to recover, in most cases, 100% of those costs we have on the right-hand page. That's kind of how you read the report. You start that high-level summary, go to the fees, and then get into the detail. So Appendix B is, like I said, most of this report. At the very, very end, there's an Appendix C. So it's like the last 10 pages. There's an Appendix C for fire prevention fees. And so we had a whole lot of detail on this, and so we decided to just break this out and be able to show all this detail. And so you can see all the various lists of fire prevention fees that we have there, the time involvement for the fire prevention specialist as well as the fire prevention inspector, and then what that cost and therefore what that fee turns into. So a lot of these there's a lot of construction-related fire prevention stuff, specialty fire plan checks and such. There's also annual business reviews, annual fire code permits, that's all what's included in this Appendix C at the end. And then at the very, very end, the last page, is Appendix D, which has a summary of the fully allocated hourly rates for every position. So you can see what the fully burdened rates are. I just want to make it clear because every city staff member demands that I make clear, this isn't what they take home. This is not their take-home pay. This is all these other things added on top of it. And as Gina also mentioned, recreation is not included in here. We're still kind of working out the details on some of the costs in there. So wanted a little bit more time to finalize that and make sure what we presented we're comfortable with. And so that will be coming shortly and certainly before the work study session we have for that coming up. And so at the end of the day, it's up to you guys. You make the final call. We're saying this is what the costs are. You don't have to charge up to that. If you're charging more than that, you have to lower the fee. You can't charge more than the cost. Our goal was to identify what those costs were. We made fee recommendations to recover those costs in most cases. And now it's up to you to decide who's going to pay for the services that are being provided. Do you want to charge full cost? Or are there areas where there are benefits to the community or, frankly, any reason that you want to subsidize certain fee services? And that's what I hope to get into at the study session, where we can really get into the detail, answer all your detailed questions, certainly have staff answer your detailed questions about what is being provided in services and why certain costs are and certain times are what they are. And with that said, any questions?
All right. So does council have any questions?
Got a couple.
I have
Okay.
a couple.
Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah.
So Ted, go ahead and go first.
And this is for Gina or Mr. Johnson. We started doing this, I know the city manager and myself, this is similar to what the county had approached us on a year or two ago, about a year ago, about doing a full cost recovery for sheriff services. And there was some backlash, but what we found, and when I look at this, and I don't know if this is true too, is in your rates, do you eliminate the redundancy factor on some of the job titles that are similar in here, and these costs for what, I mean, one department has Chad has a department, Steve has a department. If they have, somebody has, and they're doing the same thing that one of Gina's people do. I mean, as you got rid of the redundancy, and we don't have that much here in the city because our staff is so small.
Yeah, it's something if it comes up as part of a process that we have a community development technician doing this and another one doing this. What are they doing, and making sure that they're not doing the same thing. I don't recall that coming up as part of the process here in the city of Norco, but it's certainly something we look at. We're not here to tell them how they should be doing their job, though. We're not here to be efficiency experts. We're here to say this is what's happening. For things that seem unusual to me or seem out of place to me, I will talk with staff during the process about that. And if there are duplications, we'd certainly want to address it. But I don't recall that being anything.
Okay, I'm just asking because I've come from a county agency where there is a lot of duplication and redundancy in positions, and I don't think it's here. I'm just, if that was a factor in this at all.
No, I don't think Norco has the benefit of that luxury. You're very it's a very lean staff here. There's people are doing only what they need to do.
Okay. And Gina, this is more directed at you. This is on times. And I know we have study sessions, and they're from 4 to 6, and probably the rest of us, council and the city manager. I tell you, I'm looking at some of these numbers when I first did my review of this in your staff report. If there was some way we could do these to where we get at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's not too many of the general public can come here. And this is one of those things that we have to be as transparent as we can, especially with us moving forward with the revenue measure. If we can put these in a more timely public, easier for the public to come other than 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If we can. I mean, I'm not asking right now for an answer, but maybe we can project to look at that in the future.
I think any other alternatives would be another evening, non-council meeting.
I'd say I would think that the rest of us council members, we're talking a lot of numbers, and I'm looking at these raised, and I don't have personally a problem with at least coming here in an evening on maybe a Tuesday or a Thursday night or some other evening to where one of these, especially when you get into the recreation fee study, we need to have these in the evenings where public can come. So that's just my thought. Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that. We've tried that before, and I don't mind trying it once, but if only 3 people show up, we go back to the 4 o'clock time, because that's usually what shows up, and one of those 3 that usually shows up, she's been very ill here lately and hasn't gone to anything, so that cuts it down to 2. And that's my thoughts on them.
Okay. Councilman Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening.
When I first read this, I was just shocked there, the amount of money that we're bleeding. Okay, and I'll leave it at that. But question, and maybe somewhat of a theory, in this I'm tying to your use of full business costing, okay, and I'll leave this or keep it with the outside choices, primarily like development, let's say, building and safety, etc., planning commission, that certain jurisdictions, and I'm sure you're aware of some of them, that if you're a developer, you'll go in and you'll give the city a deposit, okay? Let me back into this. By these fees, if we will quote them a number, right? Whether it's the current number or the revised one that council decides on, that will be the cost, okay? There's other jurisdictions that say, we're going to accept a deposit for your project. We will bill accordingly against that deposit. If we don't exceed the deposit, we refund the money back to you. If we are going over the deposit, all work stops till you refresh that deposit account. Okay? Would that, I know Steve would love it because it'd be a lot more work for him, but would that be prudent would it belong under the premise of full business account costing?
In a perfect world, yes.
Okay.
And so as we're going through this process, we're trying to identify the typical time. And so I tell staff, it's kind of like a swim competition. Take out the high score and take out the low score and look at that big, fat, happy medium. If that big, fat, happy medium is a wide bell curve, then that's telling us that's something that probably should be a deposit, because there is no typical. And you typically see this on very large projects, large developments. But for those that bell curve isn't that wide, that the typical, other than the extreme outliers, are within an acceptable range, that's lining up for something that we can collect a flat fee on. You'll win on some, you'll lose on some, but you'll win and lose a little. And we want to have more flat fees from two standpoints. One is it's a lot easier for staff to take care of, because if you have a deposit, you have to track it, you have to bill it, you have to collect the money, you have to manage the deposit. If you're a developer, you want to know what your fee is. You want to be able to put that number into your model and know how this project is going to do. And so every developer I've talked to, they don't care what the fee is. Up to a certain point, of course.
Right.
They care how quickly you're going to process it.
Correct.
And so knowing what that fee is going to be goes a long way for them. And so for those large projects where it could widely vary, yeah, absolutely deposit. And we do have some deposit fees that are still in here. But for those that it makes sense for a flat fee, you're not having a wide range, it makes more sense from the developer and from the staff standpoint to keep it as a flat fee.
But you are aware that multiple jurisdictions do approach it with that
Right.
deposit.
Riverside County, as part of a threat of a lawsuit back in the late 90s, they charge actual cost for all their building safety. They have as many office people as they have field people, because they got to track all those costs.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, a deposit ends up costing the developer more because of all the tracking. And so it's something that we try and leave for those few cases where it more lends itself to we don't know how much time it's going to take.
Now, that could be done then maybe, say we get a very large-scale project, then you could...
Yeah, and that's something that would make sense for,
Right,
give us
and
$50,000.
just do it on that one
we'll start
case,
charging.
right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, not to get into the weeds, but those were a lot of areas where we were losing a tremendous amount of money, and that's why I was asking that question. And so talking about weeds, all right, just that I'm curious, on page 4, it says weed and lot clearing. Is that fire, is that weed abatement?
Yes.
Okay, so, and this has always been my contention, that we provide free landscaping services for people that don't want to weed their lots, and our city attorney tells us we can only charge for the cost of the service, and we're losing $14,000 a year. So somewhere we're not charging for the cost of the service.
And you have and you have the current fee in place where it has the contractor cost plus 100%.
Right.
The reason that at the end of the day, you're always going to lose money on this is because you spend time on people that eventually clear the lot, but they don't do it until they really, really have to. And so
Right.
the contractor never gets called out, so there's not a fee for them. And so you've spent all this time on those people. So really, you're only charging those people that you actually have to go out and clear their lot, and not charging all those people that you spend time on and coaxing them to clear the lot, and then they finally
Okay.
clear it. Some cities will set up a fee for charging those people, that if you don't clear it by so many days after the first notice goes out and a second notice goes out, there's a second notice charge. Most agencies don't, because the goal of this is really for people to clear their lots and not necessarily to make money. But you certainly want to hit those people that you do clear the lot, because you don't want the city to be the landscaper of choice.
Okay. So,
Actually, too.
Right.
right. I mean, that one's just always just bugged me.
Sure.
Going down just a couple of columns, and not to pick on fire tonight, but, and this will be just the last one I'll mention, fire prevention, plan check inspections. Okay, that's a cost that is paid for by, let's say, the developer, right, or a resident wanting to do a remodel or whatever. I don't even understand how we can lose $171,000 a year on that, but also, why are you only recommending, let's try to recover $50,000 when we're losing $171,000 on fire prevention and plan check?
That was me being conservative on the revenue projection. This is something that at the end of the day, it should be recovering certainly all of these costs, but it comes down to the volume that comes in, because as part of this, we did not go through and get volume numbers on all those things in Appendix C. We didn't ask fire staff to give us how many of these you've done in the last year. So the fee is meant to recover that cost that we identified. This is how much time it takes. And at the end of the day, based on what they're currently doing and what staff's out there currently, they're spending all their time doing that. If that volume comes in, you're going to recover all those costs. I didn't want to project that as part of this report. I'd rather be on the conservative side, but the fees were designed to recover 100% of the costs.
Okay. And this is something then we can get into during the study session. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bash, do you have any questions?
No, just a couple. So I'm just curious, what determines what is covered by tax and grants and what's covered by fees? Is that state law, or is that us, or is that?
Yeah, there's certain things that are limited by state law. Proposition 218 really tightened up those property-related charges that have to now be approved by the property owners or the voters. At the end of the day, though, for a lot of these things, it comes down to you decide what's community-supported and what's personal choice sort of what's tax supported and what's fee supported by your subsidy decisions. We've put in here all those things that we think are viable as fees or potential fees. Theoretically, anything that's not property based could be charged a fee. It just comes down to, in some cases, there's no easy way or rationale to charge a fee. I mean, theoretically, you could charge a fee for fire response. Nobody does. For a lot of reasons.
We kind of do.
But there's certainly agencies back east, especially rural areas, that if you don't pay your fee, they don't put out the fire.
Yeah,
and so
it's like the old medallion. You had to buy the medallion, put it up there,
and so at the end of the day, it's up to you. We've put forth those things that we think are viable options, and through your decisions, you'll decide what's fee supported and what's tax supported.
So is it correct to say that there might be some philosophical issues in terms?
This is all
so like, for example, fire prevention, I looked at some of the same stuff he did, and in my view, that's paid for, or should be paid for, or maybe I'm not making a judgment actually, but fire prevention, all those things related. And then, is there any consideration in this, again, philosophically, for some sort of payback for volunteers? Is there some trade-off that you make? Is that a factor you should consider, I'm asking you?
I know when we get into the recreation discussion, it'll be a much different discussion than the planning discussion.
Gotcha.
And we'll look at it differently also. We're not necessarily going to come forward to that study session and say, we think the fees should be this, this, and this. We're going to come forward and we're going to ask for, here's what you're recovering today. Each of these programs within recreation, including the event center, is recovering so much of its cost. And we'll talk about it in terms of direct cost, just because it's an easy number to wrap our arms around. And we'll get into all that detail later. But we're going to be asking for some goals, for some cost recovery goals for various different programs. And then be able to come back with some fees based on those kind of philosophy and policy of, we think that out-of-town groups should pay full cost, and we think that in-town groups or residents or resident nonprofits or whatever groups should pay these different levels of cost, and have that discussion then. Because when we get into that discussion, it's about what the community puts forward and what the city is willing to subsidize with its tax dollars, because of course that's the same tax dollars. You can't spend a tax dollar twice. But that is certainly much more of, when people pay their taxes, they pay for these things that make up the community, and recreation programs are certainly part of that. And so we'll certainly get into those philosophical discussions, and it'll be, at the end of the day, it's up to you guys to decide what you want to give value to. And I mean, we could all come up with whatever mechanism to put some value to that, but it's going to be up to you to say, this is what we value, this is the direction we want to go.
And then just an observation, I always love it when they say they want cities to run like a business. The one thing that's missing from all of that is competition. And the ability to say, you know what, the unfunded liability is not fair, Sacramento, or we kind of did some of that, but it's like a city's run like baseball and a private business is like football. They both have a ball, but the reality is that there's no owner to say, oh, the city manager doesn't get paid this month, which is what happens in the private sector. So it's just interesting. And I always bridle when we always blame Prop 13, which is the reason. But I also remember the days when you could just raise your fees willy-nilly whenever you wanted to, and old people were losing their homes. But anyway, I'm really impressed with this report. Just like Greg, I think he said it best. It really opened my eyes. But now the hard part is philosophically, what is it that we want people to pay for? So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Any other council questions of staff? Thank you for the report. I'm looking forward to going through it. Are there any speaker cards?
No cards on this item.
Okay. So I'll bring it back to council for discussion and action. It's been properly moved and seconded to receive and file the proposed fee study and cost allocation plan.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you for your time. We will move on to item number 6, City Council, City Manager, and Staff Communications. We'll go ahead and start with Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing.
Excellent. Chad.
Sure. I got 2 updates I wanted to give you. The South Norco Channel project is supposed to come back with their bids on April 3rd. And so that means most likely they will start construction on that South Norco project, I would say reasonably by July. Takes a while for flood control to get everything through their board and whatnot, but July, talking with staff today, they think July is a reasonable number for actual construction to start. It will be a project that's going to last about a year and a half. And there's specific restrictions on the contractor when they can do certain work because of the school district and everything else. So it'll be a long staged process that will involve several meetings with certainly with Norco, the school district, the contractor, and anyone of interest to make sure we try to make this as smooth as possible. But I want to give you an update on that. And for the mayor's benefit, the lateral that you asked about this week, it's called S6, that's currently crushed underneath Temescal in front of the school. The flood control district has said that if the city can quickly get a design done on that they would add that to the South Norco Channel project. So talking with staff today, it shouldn't be a problem, and they'd probably be able to add that in pretty easily. So that's our goal, to try to get that there, because water is flowing through it, but it's got its problems. So we'll work on getting that done. And then I wanted to give council an update on Vine Street. Our water line project is nearing completion as far as the water line goes. And then there was planned redoing the surface and all the streets on Vine, Half Moon, and I don't remember the name of the other street that's there. There's a cul-de-sac, Driftwood, excuse me. However, a problem's come up with the street in that the design treatment that we originally had planned isn't actually sufficient for what the road condition is. The contractor brought up concerns about what we were proposing to do, which is primarily a 10th grind treatment, would not hold up and do us really any good on what the conditions are. I had the city engineer go out and review that. He agrees it's actually a much more degraded in most of the section on Vine and needed of a more heavier treatment. We asked for just to curiosity, the consultant or the contractor to give us a bid to that increase. That increase was really way too high, in my opinion. So we're going to pull out the street portion of that project. And I've already asked the city engineer to do a quick redesign on that so we can go out and get a competitive bid, because I think we'll be far better suited to do a competitive bid, especially with the bids that have come in, and they've been pretty good, that we will be better, we'll get a better bang for our buck. So I just want to make sure you knew that what that's going to cause is all the trenching and everything that's there has been capped. It's good surface, it's functional, but the reality is what we had indicated we're trying to do to get the whole street done will not be done right now. It will likely be back out if we quickly get the new plans in and out. We could probably be starting that street in June. That's my goal. But I want to make sure you're aware of it because it is a project that's nearing that point, but it's not going to move forward at this point because the dollar value that we were quoted is not acceptable. So I just want to make sure I gave you that update on that and our desire to quickly come back to you with a project that you could support. That was designed by KWC as the primary designer because they were doing the water line, and we had them add in street construction. Just their view on it just wasn't appropriate.
Matt, anything? Cheryl?
Just a reminder to the public that the city's State of the City address is this Thursday or tomorrow. And the reception starts at 6 p.m. The presentation starts at 7. The theme for this year, presented by Mayor Grunmeyer, is Redefining Norco, a community shaped by its people. And that'll be held at Villa Amalfi, the Hidden Valley Golf Club. So we look forward to seeing the public there. And then recruitment for the Measure R Citizens Oversight Committee concludes next Monday, March 25th at 6 p.m. So residents that are interested in applying for this can get information online or just come and see the city clerk's office. I believe as of this afternoon, we have about 18 or 19 that have applied.
Excellent. Councilman Newton.
Brian, would you please follow up with us on Bonnie's concerns on that fencing off of the property, not Taft Street, but by the park there?
Yeah.
Let us know what that's all about.
Will do.
You will? Thank you.
Councilman Bash.
Where are we at on Corona Avenue at Hidden Valley? I see a big pile of dirt. Is that just what's going in there, a gas station, and do we have a restaurant that's
It's a combination gas station, convenience store, and car wash.
In the same building?
Yes, all the same project.
Is there going to be another pad for something else, or is it?
There's an attached, indoor fast food service that would be part of the convenience store.
Okay. And then, Andy, we met with the trustees for the Riverside City College District, and one of the things that came out of that was they can't do anything unless they get another entrance or exit. It was the impression I got. So maybe we need to agendize that so we can discuss it with council members. Just talk about what we know, and I'll leave that to you to schedule it when you want to. But I think it's something that. So that way you just got let off the hook. But I just think that the council needs to know what's going on there. It's very exciting, but they've got some planning issues that I was sort of surprised by. And then finally, we have what I'd like to do is I'd like to agendize trainers. We got a dog trainer that was kind of surprised by some fees that came up, and maybe during the fee session, but what it made me realize is if you're a trainer in the city of Norco, horse trainer, and you have a horse that comes on your property to train it, you get a business license, obviously, but you then have to get a CUP, even though the owner's there and the dog or the horse or whatever leaves. And I don't think that's a good way of fostering animal keeping. And again, I always go back to the only thing that will keep the large lots protected is people want to spend money to keep the large lot. And traditionally and historically, that's been animal keeping. So I'm wondering, can we talk about that during the fee session, or should we talk about that as a separate agenda item? And if so, can I ask that we agendize that and talk about trainers, dog trainers, horse trainers, and just sort of have a discussion?
Yeah, it looks like what you're asking is some sort of an amendment to an existing code section.
Something so that we address it and just talk about it. It may just stay the same, but I just want to make sure that, one of the ways people subsidize that $28 bale of hay is that they train horses. And, we were, because of the huge increases in waste management, I suspect we have lost hundreds of horses already. And I just want to make sure that we, not just horses, but dogs, and I'm not talking about boarding, I'm not talking about that kind of thing, I get that. But this is if somebody comes on your property for an hour and then they leave, they're being charged as if it's a special CUP. And I just think that maybe during fee, I just want to make sure we're fostering those activities, because that is what will protect our town in a very real way.
So we can provide a report that shows what is currently in the code.
Right.
And if the city council desires, then we can go back and amend
and what it
any
costs.
Provision that you would like to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Council's okay with that? No? Yes.
Make a motion.
No, we can agendize and bring you back information. I don't think the motion is needed to do that.
Because I like this whole cost thing is pretty cool. I like that. All right, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. And good luck tomorrow in the rain. By the way, I saw you bucking hay.
Rain.
You were actually bucking hay, dropping your own hay off. I was very impressed. All right.
Go by and wave to
Yeah. I'm a worker. All right, Mr. Harper. Andy.
Yes, I do want to add some additional information in terms of the presentation that was made by Councilmember Hoffman regarding Western Community Energy as well as the Community Choice Aggregation Program. One of the things we told you when you adopted a resolution to join WCE was that the city would not be on the hook for any liability until power contracts are executed. Just want to let you know that those power contracts are coming up fairly quickly. And in this particular situation, there are two types of power contracts that needs to be executed by Western Community Energy. One is what they describe as the resource adequacy power contract. This is something that they are required to do by CPUC to ensure that they have enough power to deal with the spikes in electricity usage during the summer months. And the other one is the fixed power contracts, which is the regular contract that would purchase power to meet the regular demands of their customers. So with respect to the resource adequacy power contract, the recommendation is for them to enter into that contract by May or June this year, and they are expected to purchase a total of about $28 million to meet their resource adequacy requirement by CPUC, and that breaks down into costs for each city. And for the city of Norco, that $28 million proposed power contract will be about $2.4 million. On the fixed power contracts, they are going to be entering contract. That contract will be entered by the end of this calendar year, sometime in October of this calendar year. And are estimating to purchase about $71 million to meet the fixed power contract of fixed energy requirements. And Norco's share of that is estimated to be about $6.2 million. The key thing here is to note that once these power contracts are entered into by Western Community Energy, presumably the city of Norco, as a member of the JPA, would then be on the hook should we decide to pull out, okay, after these contracts have been executed. If the city doesn't elect to pull out, after these power contracts are executed, but before the launch of the program, which is expected to be in 2020, then there are no issues to worry about. The other thing to keep in mind is even if the city decides to pull out between the time the power contracts are executed and the time that the program actually is launched in 2020, there might be still a market to sell the Norco share of these power contracts. But if those contracts get sold and the city's the amount of revenue generated from that is less than what it cost when it was initially purchased, and the city decides to pull out, then we'll also be on the hook for that. Just want to make sure that that information is relayed, so that should the city decide to go a different direction, this is stuff we need to be aware of. Well, as far as the city being free of liability is before any of these contracts are executed, which is the resource adequacy contract, power contract, or the fixed power contract. And as I previously stated, the resource adequacy power contracts are expected to be purchased or executed sometime in May or June of this year.
Councilman Hoffman?
I do. And Chad, this is at you. Slurry seal, when are they going to complete that up in the hills?
That's a very good question. We keep going back and forth with them. They're a very poorly managed group. They continually say they finished the, uncovering our manholes and things like that, and they're still not done. So we keep going back and forth, debating with them about what's clean, what's not. We're trying to get them done and out of here, but it's been a very long, painful project.
They didn't finish the striping yet.
Yeah, some of it's not done. Some of the tracking hasn't been removed yet. That should have been removed. Like I said, they just supposedly uncovered some of our water valves. There was a lot of extra slurry on our sewer manholes that they haven't removed. So it's been a very painful process to try to get them to get things done.
I hope
the weather hasn't helped either, but
well, I understand it's raining, but I hope we remember that on the next bid project we have.
Ted.
And then, go ahead, Greg.
No, I was just going to, on that, I think the other question to Chad should be is, how far are they into liquidated damages?
And that is a discussion we're actively having with them as far as where they stand with that, when it starts, when it stopped, or how many days they got because of other things. We're heavily in that debate because I already notified their liquidated damages a couple months ago,
okay.
Right when the weather changed on us. So that's done some. It has a significant impact on the actual number of days, but they know they're in liquidated damages. They've already been notified of that, but it's just now we're trying to get them to finish up. But there's a heavy debate candidly about when they were notified as far as notification, but also the process that's been in place as far as when they finished versus when we inspected, did we appropriately inspect it in a timely manner, et cetera, et cetera. So we're in that process, and that's a big, heavy discussion. Trust me.
Thank you. And Kevin, in answer to the alternative route, if you recall, at that time, Mayor Newton appointed Mayor Grunmeyer and myself to sit on that alternative route committee for the college. We had one meeting, right? And that's it. So we've had a meeting with them and discussion. So they need to either bring that committee back and work on it again. I don't want to rehash the wheel again with them, to be honest with you.
It's not so much that they're looking at an alternative route, it's that as they described it, they can't, there's a whole bunch of things that came out. There's a whole bunch first off, we learned about the system, and the system is very different than K through 12. The trustee actually cannot go on the campus without an invitation. I mean, there's a bunch of things because there's a lot of leadership positions, but there's a lot of things that haven't gotten to the trustees yet. And like, for example, building, they're not certain they can actually build apartments on that site. And if they want to do the photonics, they must have another access. I later on, they're kind of hoping they can go through the Navy base, but I know for a fact the Navy base is not going to work with them on this. In terms of, finally, we did get through to them to make them understand there is a flag lot that is almost unusable that you might be able to go through there to get off the campus. But I walked away, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, they cannot expand in any fashion unless they have another exit off that property. That was the impression I got.
Well, their own report that they did themselves stated that, and that report is almost 10 years old now.
Well, there's also, you got a break between the trustees and the president, and in my estimation, a huge break between the chancellor, the trustees, and the president.
That campus, and I'm just taking this off the top of my head, I believe that campus was maxed out at 10,000, according to their projections. And they're well exceeding that at 13 to 14,000.
I mean, make no mistake.
I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
I want to find ways to make this work. There's things they're doing there that are really, really important. But one of the things we talked about, and it's not agendized, we talked about maybe placing veterans housing. The whole reason for that discussion was how real was that? And they really do want to develop that, but maybe we develop it off-site somewhere nearby, and that would help us to do our housing element. So there was a whole conversation that occurred, and jump in there, Madam Mayor. I mean, have I said anything that's inaccurate?
No, and this goes back to the conversation we had about the alternative committee, and I know it's not agendized, and it goes back to the mayor and myself meeting with the president of the college and having a discussion, to him coming in to us more and to communicate more. And I think and without going into it, I think there's a communication problem there. And so I'm not eager about agendizing something that we need to communicate with more.
Well, I just think that we need to kind of know what's going on there, what their plans are. It may be premature to have that meeting. That's why I'm leaving it up to Andy to kind of decide when he wants to bring it to council.
Yes, I can add to that too. Is that staff, we actually recently met with Dr. Reese, myself, Public Works Director, Brian Petrie, Steve King. They are currently in a process of developing a master facilities plan for the campus that will address their infrastructure needs as well as expansion needs over the next 10 to 20 years. That process is just ongoing, and they plan to have a public hearing, public input process as part of that plan. Before that plan is finalized, I think it's prudent to wait until we see that plan finalized and go through the public process before we need to decide what the city needs to do to accommodate that. Clearly, I think they recognize that securing a secondary access is critical to them meeting that master facility plan. So there will be some discussions within that public hearing process.
Councilman Hoffman, anything else?
No, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanna?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chad, this is for you, I think. With all the rain, and we got weeds, and we're going to have more rain, and the weeds are going to get taller and everything, are you in contact with flood control about them keeping those channels cleared as soon as they can? Because that's a big breeding area for mosquitoes when they don't cut their weeds in there. And like I said, I know right now it's hard for them to do it because of all the water, and we'll probably keep this rain up till about May if that's normal for a rainy year. But Have you in contact with them about it or anything?
Not at this time in the season. I mean, when it starts getting active growth, I mean, because of the rains, it has kind of, basically scruffed off a lot of the dirt and weeds that have been growing, but they're quickly coming back in a lot of the channels when it's because it's stopped. And obviously it's doing the same thing on our parkways, but we will keep up with them and looking at those areas that need to have attention. We'll certainly keep that in mind.
Yeah, 'cause everybody needs to pay attention to their weeds and their containers that hold water, 'cause that little international group the other day one of the deals was talking about the problems in the different countries with mosquitoes in West Nile. They have a tremendous amount of West Nile in those foreign countries because of the mosquitoes, and they have a hard time maintaining the control because they have government agencies that take care of vector, but then they've also got private companies that abide by no rules, so they've got illegal spray and chemicals and stuff that goes into all their water systems. And that lady from Greece talked about several places they have over there with their traps. They'll get as many as 30,000 mosquitoes at a time in a trap, for I think a huge number here is 700. So they have a worse problem, but I just want to make sure that when it dries up some, we keep on the flood control bus to keep those channels clear so the water don't stand. Thank you.
Lieutenant, Chief, Gina, Brian.
Just remember, if you're wanting to take a look at off-roading this weekend, Echo Crawl up at Ingalls on Saturday and Sunday, all day.
All right, just one quick thing. The principal of Norco High School contacted me today. There's a company from Fort Worth, Texas called Sports Media Advertising that's claiming to represent local schools and collecting donations, and then those donations are not getting back to the schools. So if you've been contacted by Sports Media Advertising for donations, please contact the district office or Norco High School. Unfortunately, some people have already given donations to the company, so it's some scam that's come from Texas to Norco. So just letting everybody know. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is adjourned, 9:07.